First and last name?
My first name is Jesse, my last name is Snodgrass.
Have you ever sold drugs at Chaparral High School?
Nope.
You never sold drugs to any students there?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Do you know who this is?
Nope.
You sure?
Yeah, sure. Daniel?
It was the first thing he said when I spoke to him on the phone. It was not, "Mom, I got locked up," but he said, "Mom, do you remember my friend?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "He was a cop."
The war on drugs is still going strong in America. Even though states like Colorado and Washington have legalized weed, federal grants still reward local police departments based on the sheer numbers of drug arrests they report, incentivizing local cops to target the most vulnerable. On December 11, 2012, 22 high school students were arrested in Temecula, California, a sunny suburb just east of LA. It was the culmination of what authorities called Operation Glasshouse, a 21 Jump Street-style undercover sting. Adult police officers posed as students in 2 high schools. They went to class, did homework, and tried to get kids to sell them illegal drugs on campus. This is the story of Jesse Snodgrass, an autistic teenager who was one of the students arrested that day. At the beginning of his senior year, Jesse thought he'd made a new friend, a fellow student named Daniel Briggs. But this friendship was a sham. Daniel Briggs was in fact Deputy Daniel Zipperstein, a cop in his mid-20s. Ever since his arrest, Jesse has suffered from PTSD, so he didn't want to talk to us on camera. But he wants his story known. His parents, Doug and Catherine Snodgrass, welcomed us into their home to talk about how Operation Glasshouse affected their son and what they're doing to fight back. This is the story of how the war on drugs preys on the most vulnerable. Did Jesse have many friends growing up?
Well, that's always been a big challenge for Jesse. He has no friends.
Senior year, he made a new friend, right?
Yeah, it was huge progress. We felt it was a milestone in Jesse's life. It seemed like a godsend to us. On one of the very first days of school, Daniel asked Jesse to get him some marijuana.
So you do know who that is?
Yeah.
Do you know his name?
Daniel Briggs.
Have you ever sold Daniel Briggs drugs? We know that you've sold drugs.
But I just gave him some because he was just all like, "I need this."
So Daniel asked Jesse to get him some marijuana. He also gave him some money, $20 to get it for him. Jesse didn't know where to get it. I started texting him relentlessly, making requests, bugging him. He agonized over this for some time. He decided to go to a dispensary, a marijuana dispensary, and he found some guy who Jesse says he thinks was a homeless guy who was near there, and he gave him the $20 and got a very small amount of marijuana for it. And that's what he supplied to Dan. He was charged with 2 felony counts of selling marijuana.
Oh, there it is. Yep. That's the amount of weed. Mm-hmm. Ha! $20, 0.6 grams. That's outrageous.
I think he was really worried about how am I going to do this, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my friend. His only friend.
He was desperate.
This is the beginning where he just sort of starts to retreat, and it's really hard to get his attention. You would kind of clap your hands loudly in front of him and he wouldn't even flinch. At around age 2, his speaking just stopped. He just stopped being aware of things. He's just not here. You'll start noticing he's looking away from the camera almost all the time, where he would just sit in the corner by himself and kind of wave his hand in front of his face like this for hours. His behavior was becoming more and more isolating. I went out of my way to find him play dates. Kids would come over and I would make sure they'd have a really good time, because I'd want to kind of encourage any friendships. That would be one time only. I don't think he'd ever have more than one play date.
Did you at all feel like the betrayal that ended up happening with the undercover cop was kind of like there's echoes of various things that happened through his lifetime?
Absolutely. Well, it was the biggest betrayal, but it was one more, you're right. He wasn't even upset at being locked up. He was just so upset that this person betrayed him. And he said, Mom, I was only trying to help him. I thought I was doing the right thing.
And that people who do this are viewed as heroes, that's beyond me.
Well, what seems almost so insidious about it is that he was reacting out of empathy, that he was showing it by his actions. He was trying to help out a friend.
Yeah.
Which I suppose for his condition is quite remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, for him to be able to do that was, would be considered a breakthrough under normal circumstances.
He was being bullied for being different.
The word retard was used at him a lot. He still reacts really strongly to that word. In response to all this bullying that was happening, he was trying to make himself unapproachable. He cut his hair off, cut it real short to like a buzz cut, started wearing, t-shirts with like metal militia type logos. Gave him a tough guy persona. Most of the students knew Dan as a narc. On campus, his nickname was Deputy Dan because he was always asking for drugs, always asking, where I can get this, and if he would jump into conversations just asking for drugs.
Did Temecula have any sort of history as being kind of like a drug town, like where kids get high all the time?
Not that we've ever heard of. Temecula was named the second safest city in America.
Sebastian Eppinger and Jessica Flores were two other kids rounded up in the sting.
It was my junior year, and I met this guy in my 6th period class. His name was Daniel Briggs, well, that's the name he was going by. I started hanging out with him at break and lunch and all that.
I just remember him walking over to our group one day and asking if he could sit down with us. And of course I just said yeah, because anyone could sit with me. I don't judge.
He started asking me to get him some marijuana or any kind of drugs I can get him, and I was just like, no, I don't do that, I don't mess with that.
Right.
But he just kept bugging me, so eventually I was like, okay, sure, I'll take you to someone. So I took him to a friend I knew. He gave me the money, so I'm like, okay, here. And then the guy took it out and put it on his binder. And he was like, okay, just grab it off that and leave. I was like, okay, so I just grabbed it and put it in his hand. And he was like, okay, thanks, and he walked away.
He would ask me every day, every single day. He'd be like, hey, do you have this for me? Hey, do you have that? And I'd be like, I guess so. I just decided, okay, well, I guess I should bring some so I could make some money off of him.
He would always text me and be like, oh, can you bring me some tomorrow? I'm like, no, I don't have any at my house. I'm not a drug dealer, I don't have anything.
Did he seem like a student?
We'd sit at a dance class.
And they would leave the door wide open because it gets sweaty in there. They'd be dancing in their booty shorts. Some of them would come outside and walk around occasionally. And I remember him looking over and just saying to our little group, he was like, damn, look at the ass on that one. She was probably 15 years old, so.
What was it like when the bust went down?
I was in my house sleeping. These gang unit cops, there's 7 of them, came in my house and they had all these bulletproof vests on and everything. They picked me up out of my bed. They get up and they put me up against the wall and they started patting me down. But I was only wearing my underwear, so they pulled down my underwear, kind of are you hiding any knives? I was like, I'm sleeping. I'm like, I don't sleep with a knife.
I was in my Algebra 2 class. All of a sudden, these huge officers with their vests on and the full gear and everything, they come in and they're like, oh, where's Jessica? And they grabbed me. They took me out the door. They pinned me to the wall, handcuffed me. The students were just staring at me. So I turned around and said, bye.
That was all over the news that night.
With a really bad headline.
Riverside County Sheriff's deputies have smashed an illegal drug ring operating out of 3 high schools in Temecula.
22 students were taken into custody.
It was like 21 Jump Street.
Deputies say during the investigation, they seized all types of drugs, meth, cocaine, LSD, and ecstasy. Chaparral High School also had students escorted by police off campus. This picture shows one of 5 arrests made there.
They broke up a drug ring in high schools.
That's what they called it.
So
that's what they called it.
That's what they called a kid buying a gram of marijuana for his supposed friend. They called it a drug ring.
Yeah.
Yes.
That seems kind of desperate. I mean, that's clearly not a drug ring. It's just kids being kids. At what point did you put it together and, knew that Deputy Dan was actually a deputy?
When they first brought us into the interrogation room, they were asking us questions, and then he just walked in his full uniform.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, okay. I'm like, do you have a younger brother? Or, like, what's up with that?
I thought, oh, so you're in trouble too? But then he wouldn't answer me. So he just stood there like one of those British officers, you know, with the big heads.
Yeah.
He just stood there looking straight the whole time, didn't say a word, didn't turn to look, nothing.
They treated us like we were hardened criminals that were like a menace to society and all that. That's what the DA was saying when we were in court. And he was saying that I was trying to sell him meth and I was offering all these different kind of drugs. And it's like, I don't even know where to get that. I've never even mentioned that to him. I wasn't even the person that like brought it to him. I brought him to someone and he saw them take it out and put it on their body. I pretty much just touched it and gave it to him. They didn't even target that person, they targeted me. He probably thought, oh, this guy looks like he would have drugs, so I'm just gonna go after him and just keep bugging him. I'm just gonna make him have drugs.
After taking him in and being so nice.
Like, we don't have that many friends, and so we're pretty much like, we trust everyone. We're like just trying to make another friend because I had no one to talk to.
So he's like picking on the loners almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, because I was a loner too, so
Yeah.
I guess he was picking on the loners actually. Trying to make his job easier.
What a dick.
I know.
Everyone seems to know immediately that Jesse has some sort of neurological issues. You know, it's really obvious to people. And he knew that Jesse was on medication too, because he even asked Jesse to sell him his medication.
Did you know Jesse Snodgrass?
While we were in the holding cells in juvie, I just remember him sitting there. He looked so sad, just his face was pale, just looking at the ground. And everyone in the cell was like, wow, they would really do that to a kid like that.
22 kids were arrested as part of this drug sting. 9 of them were classified as special education. The majority were minorities, and this is in a city that is approximately 2/3 Caucasian. It seemed like there was a real need to get numbers. These might have been the easiest targets. And one thing that they consistently have trouble answering is to be able to properly define entrapment. That always gives them a lot of trouble.
You okay?
Yep.
All right.
On its surface, it's offensive. A child with autism in school where they're supposed to be a safe haven is exposed to this trained adult masquerading as a child whose sole purpose is to force kids to commit a crime that they wouldn't have necessarily committed otherwise.
21 Jump Street style undercover operations were pioneered by the LAPD in 1974. But they stopped their stings decades later because they found that they were disproportionately arresting poor, minority, and special needs kids, and that the scope of their busts made little impact on the illicit drug trade at large. But local law enforcement across the country, like Riverside County, continue to employ this tactic.